All right, buckle up, everyone, because today's deep dive is taking us straight into the heart of the English language.
The heart of the English language. Sounds intense.
Well, maybe not the heart exactly, more like we're going on a treasure hunt for some of the most interesting words and phrases.
Okay, I like treasure hunts. What kind of treasure are we talking about?
We're digging into idioms, slang, even some, well, fancy vocabulary, stuff that'll make you sound like a linguistic pro.
So we're not just learning new words, we're learning how to use them effectively.
You got it. And the best part, we're going to uncover some of the stories behind these words. Like, where did they come from? How did they evolve? It's pretty fascinating.
Count me in. So what's on the menu for today's treasure hunt?
Today, we're tackling 4 gems. We've got bite off more than you can chew. You know, that feeling when you take on too much.
Oh, I know that feeling all too well.
Then we're hopping across the pond for some British slang. Get ready for kip.
Kip. I'm intrigued already.
And to add a touch of sophistication, we're going to explore equanimity.
Ooh, that's a good one. Very composed, very balanced.
Exactly. And finally, we're going to untangle the idiom chalk and cheese. 2 things that are, well, as different as can be.
Sounds like a diverse mix. I'm ready to dive in.
Okay, let's start with a classic. Bite off more than you can chew. Ever been there? That moment when you realize you've got way too much on your plate.
Hmm. Let me think. Was it that time I tried to learn 3 new languages at once?
Mm,
Yeah, that was probably biting off a bit more than I could chew.
that sounds like a mouthful. And that's exactly what the idiom captures. It's not just about food, it's about taking on tasks or projects that are beyond our capacity.
Right, like that giant sandwich you just can't quite get your jaw around. The image really sticks with you.
It's a vivid one, and it's been around for a while. This idiom dates back to the mid-1800s, likely originating as a warning against overcommitting.
So a piece of wisdom passed down through generations.
Exactly. But instead of picturing that giant bite, are there other ways to remember this idiom?
Sure, think of it as overcommitting or taking on too much. Those are more straightforward ways to say the same thing.
Great point. So you have multiple tools in your linguistic toolbox. Now let's switch gears and head over to the UK.
Ooh, a change of scenery. Love it.
Time to learn some British slang.
Kip,
I'm guessing it has something to do with sleep.
you're on the right track. Kip refers to a short, refreshing sleep. Not a full-on slumber, but more like a quick recharge.
Like a power nap.
Exactly. And the word itself has quite the journey. It comes from the Old Norse kip, which meant inn or shelter.
So from a place of rest to the act of resting itself, that's fascinating.
It is. And if you want to remember it, try connecting kip with skip. Both involve a sort of pause or break. Skip is a break in a sequence, and kip is a break from being awake.
I like that. A little word association to cement the meaning. And of course, if kip feels too informal, we've got trusty synonyms like nap, snooze, or even siesta for a more global vibe.
Options galore.
Now, let's level up our vocabulary. Time for a word that exudes composure and sophistication. Equanimity.
Equanimity just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? It's just kind of inner peace, a calmness in the face of chaos.
You nailed it. Imagine a captain steering a ship through a raging storm. That's equanimity in action. Maintaining a steady hand, a clear mind, even when everything around you is turbulent.
It's not about ignoring your emotions, though, is it?
No, it's about managing them, about having that inner strength to navigate challenges without losing your cool.
And the word itself has roots in Stoic philosophy, which emphasize reason and emotional resilience. It comes from the Latin equanimitas, combining equus, meaning equal, and animus, meaning mind or spirit.
So equanimity is about achieving balance, both within ourselves and in how we respond to the world around us.
Absolutely. It's like having those old-fashioned scales, perfectly balanced, representing that inner equilibrium. And if equanimity feels a tad too formal, you can always opt for synonyms like composure, calmness, or serenity.
It's great to have options. Now let's move on to an idiom that paints a picture of stark contrast. Chalk and cheese. I'm already picturing 2 things that are completely opposite.
Like, well, chalk and cheese. The idiom highlights those fundamental differences, things that simply don't mix.
It's funny because it's such a common phrase in British English, and I never really thought about why chalk and cheese.
Well, it makes sense when you think about it. Chalk and cheese are both common, everyday items, so the contrast is obvious and relatable.
Like you'd never mistake one for the other?
Exactly. And that's what makes the idiom so effective. It conveys that sense of these things are just fundamentally different in a way that everyone understands.
It's like a shorthand for emphasizing those differences. But is there a good way to remember this one?
Try visualizing it. Imagine someone trying to write on a chalkboard with a piece of cheese. It just wouldn't work.
I can see that. A very memorable image. And if we want to use other words to express the same idea, we've got options like night and day or worlds apart.
Those work perfectly. It's all about expanding that linguistic toolkit.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground, and you know what?
What's that?
There's so much more to uncover. We're just getting started. Make sure you come back for part 2 of our deep dive, where we'll delve even further into the fascinating world of the English language.
Welcome back to our deep dive into all things English language. It's amazing how many twists and turns there are in the history of words, isn't it?
It's true. We've been exploring all these fascinating words and phrases, and it makes you wonder, how did they even become part of our everyday conversations?
It really is a journey, isn't it? Each word has a story to tell.
Exactly. It's like a linguistic passport stamped with history and culture. Speaking of which, I've noticed that a lot of the words we use in English actually have roots in other languages. Like, why is that?
That's a sharp observation.
Mm.
English is a bit of a linguistic magpie, you see. It's borrowed words and phrases from a whole bunch of languages over the centuries.
So it's not just a coincidence that words like, say, restaurant sounds so French, or kindergarten has that, like, German feel to it.
Not at all. English has picked up bits and pieces from Latin, Greek, French, German, you name it, and all of these borrowed words have become woven into the fabric of the language.
It's like a big linguistic melting pot, reflecting all the different influences that have shaped English over time. Pretty cool, huh?
Absolutely. And this borrowing and adapting of words, well, it's all part of how languages evolve. They're constantly changing, reflecting the world around them. It's not a static thing, language. It's dynamic, responsive.
Which makes me think about how technology is impacting language. Like right now, we've got new words and phrases popping up all the time thanks to the internet and social media.
Oh, absolutely. Think about abbreviations like LOL and BRB. They become part of everyday conversation.
Mm.
And slang terms, well, they evolve online at lightning speed. Even emojis, those little pictures, they're practically a language of their own now.
It's wild to think about how all these new additions might shape the future of English. Will they stick around? Or will they, fade away just as quickly as they appeared?
Only time will tell.
Uh,
But it highlights something really important for anyone who loves language. We need to be curious, adaptable. We've got to embrace this evolution and appreciate just how dynamic language can be.
So we've talked about the origins of words, their evolution, all that good stuff. But how do we actually use this knowledge to, get better at communicating? What's the practical application here?
That's the million-dollar question.
Hmm.
When we understand the subtle shades of meaning in language, it allows us to express ourselves more clearly, connect with others on a deeper level.
So it's not just about like memorizing definitions. It's about understanding the context, the nuances.
You got it. Think about those idioms we were discussing. Using an idiom like bite off more than you can chew can add color and humor to a conversation.
Right. And knowing when to use a slang term like kip versus a more formal word like nap, that shows sensitivity to your audience, to the situation.
Exactly. Choosing the right words for the right moment. It's all about making sure your message is understood the way you intended it. And don't forget about those fancy vocabulary words. Words like equanimity. They can really add weight and impact to your writing and your speech. People will remember that.
But it's not about sounding impressive, right? It's about using language as a tool to really convey your thoughts and feelings clearly and accurately.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And the more we learn about the origins and evolution of language, the more we come to appreciate its complexity and beauty.
It's like cracking a secret code, revealing layers of meaning and cultural significance.
And that journey of discovery, that's what makes learning about language so rewarding. It's not just about acquiring words. It's about understanding the stories they tell, the connections they create.
So well said. It feels like we've only just scratched the surface of all the cool things there are to discover about the English language.
We've only just dipped our toes in. The world of language is massive and is always changing, which means there are always new discoveries waiting to be made.
Well, I, for one, am excited for our next deep dive. Who knows what linguistic treasures we'll uncover then?
The possibilities are truly endless. But for now, let's take a moment to appreciate all those incredible words we've explored today and how they can enrich our communication.
And to think, we only focused on 4 terms. It blows my mind to think about the vastness of the English language and all the knowledge hidden within it.
Right. It's a reminder to keep exploring, to keep asking questions, to never stop being amazed by the power of words.
Couldn't agree more. We'll be back soon for the final part of this deep dive. Stick around for more linguistic adventures. We're back for the final part of our English language deep dive. And wow, it's been quite a journey. We've gone from those everyday idioms to some seriously